Okay, so I would love for everyone to join me in welcoming our beloved Reverend Joel, who's going to give our Sunday message this morning. Thank you, Reverend Joel.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Thumbs up? Yeah, okay, good. Before we talk about the topic at hand, I would love to just take a moment, maybe a full minute, where we talk about peace, because obviously there's a lot that looks like the opposite of that in the world right now. And I remember when we used to meet in person, and we will again, I mean every Sunday, we used to have a peace practice. Do you remember that? And the peace practice was very powerful. And so I'd like to, I don't know if I remember all of it, but I'm going to remember it the way I remember it and lead us maybe into a minute of silence, and I'll keep track of the time. And let's take that light that we are, that light that we know ourselves to be, and let's enlarge that light so that it encompasses the whole world, especially all the areas in the world where there is unrest. It's not just in the Ukraine, but right now we're focused on the Ukraine. And we know that the light is for all people everywhere. So take a breath. And as I say these words, it'll lead us into a minute of silence. I am the peace I wish to see. I hold this peace for my family. My family holds this peace for the community. My community holds this peace for the world. Take a breath. Take another breath. Let's come back into the room. Wherever you are, be fully awake and aware. Thank you for doing that. There's something very powerful about when we do that together, and also when we join in that consciousness with people literally all over the world that is holding the vision of peace. So, left turn alert. I'm going to now go into the theme or the topic of today's talk. And our theme this year is the power of connection. And this month we are looking at ways to connect to our abundant self. And so today's talk is called The 3 Steps to Riches. But I want to begin by looking at what stops us from living a more rich life. Riches, of course, can be defined in many, many ways. You can have riches of peace and love and health and other things, but I have found over the years that the type of abundance or riches that seem to be the most difficult or charged for many people is an abundance of money. And connected to money too is all of our thoughts about our creative passion and our work and what we do. So we're going to talk about that today. Do we all have to be millionaires and billionaires and beyond? No, of course not. But you also shouldn't be stopped from having what you desire and go beyond living maybe paycheck to paycheck or living in fear of not having enough or whatever. It's great to feel rich in all things, and that includes feeling rich with finances and with the job of our dreams. So we're going to talk about that. I've been studying abundance for many, many years now. I began my study of abundance from a total lack of aforementioned thing. And so I really, it was, what did they say, that invention is the mother of necessity is the mother of invention. And I needed it. So I had to go out and find it. But I've been experiencing it for many, many years, more and more all the time. And I've been seeing what works and what doesn't. And I've done given a zillion classes and workshops and talks to people. I've written a dozen books about it. And so to begin this talk, I wanted to revisit what I've seen, both in myself and with the many, many people over the years who've been in my classes, about the main ways that we stop abundance from flowing into our lives. Even if you feel like you have some level of it, what stops us from experiencing even more? So I brought it down to the three most common ways that I have seen that we block our good. There are other ways as well, of course, but these are three common ways. The first is we say, I have heard this a million times, people say, I can't see how more money can come to me. I don't know how it's going to come. And what we do is we look at all the avenues that we know of where money can flow to us and say, I just don't see how more money can come through them to me. And that's the point. The how it comes to us is not part of our process. That's life's part of the process. And we look at what we already know are ways that money can come, but we don't know what we don't know. And that's the how that life gets to fulfill for us. If we relied only on what we already know, then we can't let anything new in. That's life's part of the process. We have our own responsibilities in opening ourselves up for more riches to come into our life, some of which I'll talk about in a minute. And I go really more into detail about those things in my books, but how it's going to come isn't ours to decide. We want to decide it. We want to control the process, but we only get to control our part of the process. And if you think about it, think of like some of the most amazing experiences that have happened to you. And you'll notice that many of those happen to you in the most astounding ways that you never would have predicted it. So letting go of the how and learning to do our part is important in the process. Second, I get this all the time when people show up to classes. People say, I don't know what to do. And this is usually in relation to living our dreams or creating our passion or taking steps toward realizing more abundance. Or people will say, I would do anything if I only knew what it was. Or a variation on that is, there are so many things I could do, I don't know where to begin. Or I would begin, but I'm afraid of picking the wrong thing to begin with. So these thoughts, these beliefs keep us stuck. I don't know what to do becomes a mantra. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I would do anything if I only knew what it was. What should I do? I don't know. How do I pick just one thing? What is the one thing? What if I get it wrong? That becomes a mantra for us. They become constant affirmations that play over and over and over in our head. And we know what happens with our thoughts. They are created and they come true. Life grants the wish of not knowing what to do. Instead of doing something, anything, taking a step, taking a little itty bitty tiny risk, the thought of not doing anything paralyzes them. And so they stay stuck or small or in a situation that they know is not truly what they want. And I'll talk more about this in a minute as well. And the third way that we keep riches at bay is that we might start something, but we aren't consistent. Or we stop when it gets a little challenging. Or we don't finish what we start. inconsistent action produces inconsistent results. Let me just repeat that because that's important. Inconsistent action produces inconsistent results. So what if you ordered something from Amazon? I assume most of us do. I always feel like I'm Amazon's best customer, although I also love to shop local. That's important too. But what if you ordered something from Amazon and some of the things you ordered came and some of the things you ordered didn't? And when you contacted Amazon about it, as if Amazon was one person at the end of a phone, and you contacted Amazon and Amazon said, well, I know I should send them all out, but I just didn't feel like it today. I mean, I'll do it tomorrow maybe. And I don't know. I just didn't feel like it. And anyway, do you know that your address is really a little hard to get to? I mean, it's a little far for me, and it would take a lot of effort for me to get it to you. And I'll get you some of the things soon at the right time. It's just not the right time for me. Would you order from them again? Of course not. It's the same with our actions. I call it, and many of you have been in my classes, so you know what I'm going to say. I call it C and P, consistent and persistent. Consistent means taking meaningful, positive action toward what you want every single day. And persistent means especially on the days you don't want to. These are ways that we sabotage ourselves. They keep us small or in lack. So, what to do? Well, I've mentioned a couple talks ago that I decided to go through this year with a beginner's mind as best I could. And it has served me really well so far. Beginner's mind means to empty our minds of what we thought we knew and what we think we should do, and be open to new ideas and deeper ideas. It's that idea of opening ourselves up to what we don't know so that we can learn. I love being teachable. I love studying, and I love learning to be bigger than I thought I was even yesterday. And to look at that topic of today on abundance, I looked at all the books that have changed me as a beginner. When I was a beginner to this, when I mentioned earlier about the necessity, I started reading, man, oh, wow, I was soaking it in. And I went back to those original books, and I got new copies of those books. So I can reread them new and learn them all over again from this beginner's mind where I am now. And for today, I picked 3 of those books to talk about. And I picked one principle from each of the 3 books. Now, obviously, these books all have many principles, but I just picked one principle for each of these that I think would be really extra powerful. And if you lived even one of these principles, man, if you lived it fully and mindfully, consistently, your entire life would change. But I'm going to give you 3 of them. So listen to these ideas with a beginner's mind. And I'm going to go here first, which is a book that really awakened me many, many, many years ago. A book originally written in 1937, or published in 1937, I should say, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Obviously, this book is chock full of many brilliant, brilliant ideas. But the one idea, the first thing I'll say is, the thing I really learned about this book is this was not really a book about money. It's a book about passion. Choosing something, moving forward with it consistently with a plan, and making that passion come true for you. And I always tell people the secret is in the title. And they say, oh yes, riches. Yes. I said, no, it's not riches. I said, you're right. It's about thinking. It's our thoughts, right? It's all about our thoughts. I said, no, that's not it either. It's the word nobody wants to talk about, the little G word called grow. That's what this book is about. In fact, that's what the Science of Mind is about. That's what all these books are about. Growing, expanding so that we become bigger. And as we become bigger, there's more of us for life to flow through into. So the principle from this book I want to talk about is right up front in the book. It's in the first step. He has 13 steps to riches in here. And the first step in this is a statement of desire. Now, he says in this book, he says this: examine the first 100 people you meet and ask them what they want in life. And 98 of them will not be able to tell you. If you press them for an answer, some will say, well, I want security. And many will say, well, I want some more money. And a few will say, I'd like more happiness, or I think somebody needs to mute, by the way. I don't know if you can hear that. All right, thanks. They'll say, many will say, I want more money. And a few will say, I'd like more happiness. Others will say, I'd like fame, or I'd like more power in my life. And still others will say, I'd like social recognition, which I guess translated to our language is social media likes. I'd like more ease in living, or the ability to sing or dance or write. But when pressed further for a plan of action, none of the 98 will be able to define these terms or give the slightest indication of a plan by which they hope to attain these vaguely expressed wishes. This is the important part. Riches do not respond to wishes. They respond to definite plans backed by definite desires through consistent persistence. So the first thing that he has you do, and keep in mind, this is the book that has made more people millionaires and billionaires than any other book in history. The first thing he has you do is say, what do you want? The sky's the limit. What do you want? What do you want? And then he says, okay, put it down, write it down, literally not on the computer, because they didn't have those back then, but for us, write it down with a pen or pencil and paper and write it down. And then he says, determine what you're willing to give for it. A lot of it, remember, grow, a lot of it is we have to give up the things that keep us small. Give up the actions and the habits and the thoughts that keep us small. What are you willing to give for it? And then he has you give a definite date and a plan of action. What are you willing to do every day for this? What are you willing to do? And then he says, what I want you to do now is I want you to write that all out in a statement. Just write it in a statement. And then most importantly, step 6, I want you to read your written statement aloud twice daily, just before retiring at night and once after arising in the morning. As you read it, see it in your mind and feel it and believe yourself already in possession of that thing. That's so important. We can't go somewhere if we don't know where that there is. Otherwise, we'll just keep going somewhere else. We need to continue to move forward towards something. And people will say, well, what if I pick the wrong thing to move towards? Well, nobody's holding a gun to you with this. You can absolutely change it. And in fact, that's an important thing. Sometimes we pick a goal and we begin moving toward it and we think, wait a second, I actually picked the wrong goal. And we can make a left turn and continue down that road with more awareness. Or we say, I think I accepted too little in my life. I think this goal is too small, but it's a goal that got you started. So move towards something specific and then see what happens. That's the principle that I picked from this that I think is very, very powerful for us. Next is a wonderful book called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. This book really changed my life. My original copy, almost every line is underlined and highlighted. Almost the whole book inside, page after page, is bright yellow from the highlighter. This is a brand new copy. And his important principle in this book, The Science of Getting Rich, is do not wait for a change of environment before you act. Act and get a change of environment. That's so important because I hear all the time from people saying, well, I don't know what to do. And it feels Herculean just to make a step, doesn't it sometimes? It feels like the most hardest thing in the world. And yet I learned something early on in my journey, which changed my life. And I heard it in a meditation, and I kept thinking, why, if I'm reading all these things, why isn't the universe just sending me a check for the amount of money that I wanted to get out of debt? Why is this just not happening? And I kept thinking, I'm just reading all these books and nothing's happening. And I went into meditation, and 3 words popped into my meditation that changed my life and continues to this day. And those 3 words were: energy follows action. I was like, oh, right. I can't sit here and read the books and expect it to happen. I have to take action. I have to take action. And I did. And, for people who say, I don't know what to do, let me alter that a little bit and say, inspiration follows action. Pick something and you will get inspired. It was Aristotle, I wrote this down. Aristotle says, motion is the actuality of potentiality. Isn't that amazing? Meaning, when we take action, we are putting ourselves, we are taking the potential and making it actual. But until we take action, our potential is merely potential. And that is, my friends, what is called the booby prize. Nobody wants to die with just the potential that was in them. We want to let it out. We want to experience it. We want to be it. Newton, the famous philosopher Newton, said, objects that don't move stay not moving. Objects in motion stay in motion. All it takes is taking an action. An action. Take action. In that statement of desire, Napoleon Hill says, oh, goodness. Okay, I can't find it, but he says basically, don't worry whether your action is the right action or not, and don't wait for the time for your action to be when you think that it's the right time to take action. Take action immediately. And I love that. So Napoleon Hill, clear goals to move toward, write it down, read it every morning and every night before you go to bed, so that you are living all day and all night in your sleep in that beautiful feeling of what you want. And Science of Getting Rich: do not wait for a change of environment before you act and get a change of environment. And finally, from this beautiful little gem of a book, The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. This is such a great book. And what she says is brings it right. These principles are all science of mind, but this is really maybe the most science of mind of all of these principles. She says this at the beginning of chapter 2, which is called The Law of Prosperity. She says this: one of the greatest messages given to us through the scriptures is that God is our supply, and that we can release through our spoken word all that belongs to us by divine right. We must, however, have perfect faith in our spoken word. And then she goes on to say, she talks to this woman who came to her in great distress and said she was to be sued on the 15th of the month for $3,000. And this lady who came to her knew no way of getting the money and was in despair. So Florence writes this, she says, I told her God was her supply, and that there is a supply for every demand. There is a supply for every demand. So she says, I spoke the word and I gave thanks that she would receive the $3,000 in the right way. I told her she must have perfect faith and act out upon her perfect faith. The 15th came, but no money had materialized. And the woman calls up Florence. Florence's nickname, by the way, was Flossie in real life. So she calls up Flossie and she says, hey, Flossie, you told me if I did this, the money would come. And Flossie said, what are you doing? Stay in the belief. Hold it. Keep acting accordingly. Believe it to be true. Absolutely. Why? Because God is your supply, and there is a supply for every demand. And then she goes on. There's a longer story. You should read the book to get it. But in the end, the woman gets her money. the $3,000 exactly at the right time in a way that she never, ever, ever would have predicted. Now, we teach oneness. We teach there's one power, one presence, right? And we said that this one is all powerful. And as she says, this one is our supply. So we can draw upon this supply for everything that we need. There is a supply for every demand. And if you are not doing on it, or if you're just doing it a little bit, then Flossie would tell you your God is too small. Your faith might be too small. But then she says this in a way that will help. She says, Jesus Christ knew the truth of this when he said, if two of you agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father, which is in heaven. And then she goes on to say, one gets too close to our own affairs, and sometimes we become doubtful and fearful. We need a friend or healer to see clearly the success, health, or prosperity. And they will never waver because they are not as close to the situation as you are. It's much easier sometimes to demonstrate something for someone else than it is for oneself. So a person should not hesitate to ask for help if he feels himself wavering. A keen observer of life says, no one can fail if one person sees them successful. I bring this up because we have practitioners available for you. If you are feeling like you cannot connect to the fullness and allness of that mighty, mighty God that we believe in and is our supply, and there's a supply for every demand, please avail yourself of the practitioners because they can do it for you, lift you up until you can see it for yourself. It's powerful and it's important and it's really excellent to do. And you can go to the website and find more information about it, and contact a practitioner to do it. So, definite goals, action, and God is our supply. There's a supply for every demand. So let me just, in conclusion, let's draw on the wisdom of the giants of our philosophy, and begin to walk our faith with confidence, with expectation, with consistency, and knowing that, in the words of Ernest Holmes, knowing that our good comes to us from God today, and so it is. And let's bring this into prayer so we can feel it, because feeling is the secret sauce that makes it all just delicious, all of life delicious. We just move right now into that awareness of that one powerful, that mighty, mighty, mighty powerful presence we call God. We call the one mind. We call the creative creator that has created all life in its image, including us, including me, including you. So therefore, we open ourselves to this creative power. It's our supply. And this supply meets every demand. So what we do, our part of the process, is that we hold this to be true and we take action from this high vibration, not from a vibration of fear, not from a vibration of lack, not from a vibration of confusion. We move up and out of all of that into this perfect place, and we act from there. And that means everything changes in the most amazing ways, in ways that we cannot predict. We let go of the how, and instead we choose to walk in faith. And with this as our truth, I know that we are guided and directed to our greatest good, moment by moment, day by day, week by week, and so on. We move this into that perfect place of law where it is acted upon and made manifest for us right here, right now, and together we say, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Reverend Joel. That was lovely. Thank you. All right. So let me turn off the recording.